Okay, friends, we're going to be talking some guns in Russia. I'm a little bit sick here, so please forgive me. This won't be the most exciting video, but it will be very factual because with this whole American Village project, if we're going to have an American Village, there's got to be a couple guns in there somewhere, right? So people had a lot of questions about guns, and they're discussing it on Tim Kirby Hardcore on Telegram, your place to go for weird memes and information about life in Russia and the American Village Project, at least for now. One of the key big questions is, can you buy a gun in Russia? If you're a citizen, yes. If you're a foreign person, can you use a gun in Russia? Depends where you are. Generally, like at firing ranges and all that, especially inside of Moscow proper, no. Outside of Moscow proper, pretty much yes. The way the laws are written is very vague, so if you come to Russia and you really want to go use guns, you don't have to drive too far. You don't have to go too far outside the city limits, so that's within the realm of possibility. Now, about buying a gun, compared to a lot of countries, this is not the hardest thing in the world. You just have to get this thing of what's called like a hunting ticket or something, which I guess is a weird sounding thing to have. But anyways, one thing to make clear is that smoothbore weapons, as defined by Russian law, as enshrined in this big group of laws called On Gun, it's in fact, I think, one of the very, very first things they say, and it's written everywhere, that the purpose of smoothbore weapons in Russia is self-defense. Okay, that is the reason why they exist. That is the reason that you can buy them. So to make that very clear, this isn't like some kind of like weird, EU gun usage thing where it's like maybe you can buy a gun, but you can only use it at the gun range. So it's a little bit sort of halfway between maybe Europe and the stereotypical America. But remember, guys, a lot of the guns you can buy in Russia, you can't even own in California. So we have to remember which America we're talking about here. So anyways, that's the big thing. Can you buy a gun here? Yes, but you do have to go through some bureaucratic hoops, and then you can buy your first gun once you get that ticket. You are able to buy up to 5 smoothbore guns, and then I believe after 5 years pass, you can buy up to 5, actually rifled weapons. So like 5 plus 5. Now, one thing that I have to underscore is I've seen it written different ways. Now, a lot of the people that I know who own guns, what kind of guns do they own? Well, because of the way the laws are written, there are a lot of combat shotguns in Russia. There are combat shotguns everywhere. Why? Because they seem to be one of the easier guns that your average person can acquire when they're first starting out. Not too expensive. The laws seem to be written for them to be used. In fact, if you look up anything that has to do with practical shooting in Russia, you'll see that at any practical shooting competition in Russia, it's pretty much all combat shotguns. Just bang, 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 magazine-fed shotguns all day long. But I did see recently that it seems like you can only get your magazine-fed shotgun after owning a gun for 2 years, which is weird because I didn't know. Maybe that's a new thing, so this is one that I don't even know. But trust me, guys, there are going to be some people in the comments who are complete morons, who are Russians, who are going to tell you that everything in this video is wrong, but they don't know anything. The average Russian actually thinks that you can't buy guns in Russia. So there you go. That's one of the most fascinating things when you talk about guns in Russia. Is the average person here is almost positive you can't buy them, despite the fact that there are stores here. Interesting, sort of the way the media can manipulate people's minds, but c'est la vie, that's the way it is. So at the very least, you could buy some sort of double-barreled shotgun or over and under or something, and then in 2 years you get your combat shotgun, and then 3 years after that you get your AK or whatever. Now, one other nuance is they actually do make some, like bullet caliber weapons, semi-auto, that are smoothbore. And the way the laws are written, it also looks like those would be an option that would be on the table. So essentially you have you could have, within 2 years, I guess, a low accuracy, like AK-74 with a 10-round magazine. And one thing I do know for sure is I know a lot of people with magazines, and apparently you can buy as many magazines as you like. So that's something also to think about. Now, one real big difference between, say, the American Midwest and Russia is that in the American Midwest, if someone, steals your gun, it's shame on them. If someone steals your gun in Russia, it's shame on you. So that's why you'll see at like every Walmart equivalent store, there are usually safes for sale. and especially gun safes, because if you own a gun, you have to have a gun safe for it. So essentially, after you buy your gun, you're supposed to send a photograph or short video or series of photographs showing that you have a gun safe, that it's somewhere in your house, and that it's actually, like drilled into the walls or mounted to the floor or both. And you send that to your local sheriff as sort of proof that, like, hey, if someone steals this, I did my best to make sure it didn't get stolen. So that's an expense you'll have to deal with with buying a gun within Russia. But yeah, I think that's basically the way it works out. One other thing to make clear is that with the way the laws are written, is that these smoothbore weapons are the ones that you're supposed to use for self-defense. Once you start getting into your sort of military grade and a civilian package weapons, it doesn't seem to be written that way. Again, I'm not a lawyer here, but if you're looking for home defense or whatever, your smoothbore weapons are definitely a good option. I think some of the history of where this comes from is with so many people who lived in apartment buildings in the Soviet Union. I think they kind of like the idea of promoting shotguns because shotguns don't go through walls very well. I think that's where this comes from, probably. But anyways, so yeah, that's a basic overview of guns. So if you're going to be part of the American village, after you get citizenship, can you go out and buy a gun? Oh, hell yeah. Do I plan on buying a gun as soon as I start spending a lot more full time in one location, or I start to have neighbors who could maybe look out for my property? Yeah, because that's one of the problems is when you're in the woods in Chekhov, and in winter here, there's not a very high population. And my life is kind of semi-public. I'm always kind of been really worried about, like, starting to really get into buying guns because that's a very stealable item, and when we go to the American village and I'll be able to have some neighbors I can trust who are going to be there, the overwhelming majority of the time, then I think it's going to make this a much more easier proposition. But anyways, guys, that's a bit on guns. I hope you found that at least somewhat useful. Take care, and when you come to Russia, get ready to shoot. We'll go shooting together. God dang. Friends, for those of you who actually listened to the end of this video, first off, thanks. But I want to give you a little bit of bonus footage real quick. The one thing is, the way the Russian laws are, again, about this whole gun issue, is pretty decent when it comes to on like a global scale. But being decent, being 6 or 7 out of 10 when it comes to, respect for the citizens and giving people, the power to have to take action over their lives. And also, as I talked to Scott Ritter about, basically the entire war in Ukraine has been really, really strong argumentative proof for the necessity of some kind of Second Amendment-like sort of law in Russia. So I don't want to say that everything in Russia is perfect the way it is, but, part of being in society is trying to have an influence on it. I focus a little bit more on immigration issues and American football, because that's where I seem to have a good grip on things. I think after the war is over, with the speed at which Russian society is changing in generally more or less the right direction, the right kind of way of doing things, the sort of old America meets Eastern Orthodoxy, I do think that something Second Amendment-like might become possible within the next 5 or 10 years. But that's something where, maybe new citizens of the Russian Federation might want to advocate for something like that. So, again, guys, if you're going to take all the effort to move to a completely different country, you might have to take the effort to start becoming lobbyists. Enjoy.